Hello and welcome to the Strong Suit Podcast, where we focus on the people part of your business. Every Tuesday and Thursday, I interview a world-class expert on talent and recruiting so that you can build a company filled with rock stars. And I have very few guests who get to join me twice on this show. You really gotta make the cut. It's not many. It's a pretty short list. Well, today's guest is one of those people. Jett McCandless is the CEO and the founder of Project 44, one of the fastest growing companies in Chicago, in the Midwest, frankly, in the U.S. We're going to talk a little bit about the business, Project 44, and what they do. We're also going to talk about the team, how he's built it, how he's building it. He'll be very candid about some of the challenges and how he's overcome those. And I think you're going to take away a ton. I learned a ton. I actually made notes in the first time that we did an episode. I guess it was about a year ago, and wanted to have him back to track his progress. So with all that, please welcome Jett McCandless to the show. How are you, Jett?
I'm doing well. Thanks, Jeff. I appreciate it. It's a pleasure to come back and be on the show. I also often don't get the opportunity to come back. I don't get the invite the second time.
You and me both. Well, you made the cut this time, so I appreciate you making the time. Over the next 20 minutes, we're going to talk about really the people part of this great company, Project 44. For those who didn't catch the first episode last year, let's just restate what the business is. I know it's the most comprehensive global transportation visibility platform. Now I need you to translate that into English for listeners, and then we'll talk about, maybe who some of the customers are.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. So we talk about global supply chain visibility. We're talking about really products and services that impact us every single day as consumers or in the workforce. Every meal that we eat, the clothes that we have on, deodorant that hopefully we're wearing, all of that got there by a truck, train, or plane. And it is pretty remarkable without Project 44 that there's a real lack of visibility, or essentially it's really difficult to understand where those products are at in their transit time across their life cycle. So we really create that transparency and provide that visibility.
Very crucial for makers of product, shippers of product alike. What's an example of a customer? Is it the retailer, the manufacturer, the shipper itself?
That's a great question. So we tend to call them shippers sometimes. I think that's probably going to be incorrect. It really is, to your point, it's that manufacturer, it's that distributor, it's the retailer, it's the commerce company, wherever they are in that supply chain. Typically, they're leveraging our product and using us to create that visibility. It's inbound to their facility for planning, or outbound to deliver the product to their customer. Ultimately, coming to the end consumers in most cases, like you or I.
How visible is it these days? What level of granularity do I have? If I'm a big customer, Walmart or whatever, can I see a specific truck? Can I see inside the truck? Do I know within seconds when it's going to arrive? Like, where are you at in technology?
So I'd say without Project 44, I'd say it would actually shock you how poor that data quality is.
I have no idea when the truck will arrive.
You're exactly right. And it can be delayed at ship or port, or because of hurricanes or whatever's happening there. With Project 44, we can get down to just a few inches of accuracy as to when that's going to happen. And we can also time it with weather and traffic and all types of other critical data points. So really at a high fidelity tracking.
Incredible. Well, I know you're not building this alone, even though you're the founder. You've raised, I want to say, $50 million. Is that right? How much have you raised in terms of venture capital?
Well, I tend not to always count that number because I don't think it relates to success, but we've been really fortunate. And you are right. There's a great team that I'm able to leverage here and to work with and make me look fantastic. But we've raised just a little over $90 million.
$90 million. Sorry, didn't mean to underestimate that. $90 million.
That's all right.
Which goes a long way. You're obviously putting a lot of that to work by building the team. So what I recall is around 200 people, but where does it stand now?
That's correct. Around 200 people.
Great. Based in Chicago. So let's talk about, as you've built the organization over the past 5.5 years, 200 people. You've learned a lot. I'm sure you've made some mistakes the hard way. What these days, 2019, is the single biggest challenge with regard to building and scaling that organization?
The biggest challenge year to date regarding people, I would say, for us, it's the challenge is really about getting the making sure that the folks all share the same passion that the other team members that are on the team currently have. I think it's really exciting for people to say they want to be part of a startup. I don't
Sure.
blame folks. It's oftentimes it can be a much better environment than the more legacy brands.
Yep.
But when you come to Project 44, you've got to have something. You got to have something special. You got to really have a passion and a fire within
Yep.
you.
Yep.
And I think the managers and the team members do a good job of that. So, but not everyone has that passion or that fire, and so having the ability to filter out those folks or make sure that it is the right match for where they are, and make sure everyone's goals and values are aligned. Quite frankly, it can be a challenge. The team's done a great job on it, but if we're being honest, it's a real challenge.
It never ceases to amaze me that there's as many people out there as you described that just don't have that passion, or they haven't found their passion, but that's their responsibility, not the employer's necessarily. What have you put in place to weed out or to identify that issue early on before you make the mistake and hire them? How do you interview for that? Can you interview for that? Is it even possible?
I think
yes, that was Molly, by the way. Molly's a great interviewer, but she doesn't know her place. Go ahead.
I've got to see a picture of Molly. Send one over afterwards, please.
I will.
I think that we have a responsibility as a company to, during the interview process, during the meeting process, to put filters in place to see if there is that alignment on that passion that you're talking about. Although I agree with you that it's not my responsibility to make sure that that all the candidates have that.
Yep.
I do think we have some accountability at Project 44 to make sure that we're up front with it. We set what the expectations are. We're finding people that have that, and then when they're once they're on the team, is to how do we make sure that we are creating an environment where that can continue? How do we create an environment where people can grow and they can continue that passion to help accomplish their goals? So there is, I think there's accountability on both sides, but it definitely starts at the beginning with how are you actually finding, seeing if you have a common language and seeing if you have that common passion.
Have you figured? I gotta think that after 200 people, you've put into words or phrases or something how to describe that. More than just they're passionate, right? Because a lot of people are passionate, but if they're not passionate about the right things, it may not contribute to the business directly. They could be passionate about sewing or whatever. That's probably not going to help you. So what words have you developed, if any, to help guide that?
Well, I tend to think if we go back to the five values of the company, that those values, we look to see if each person has those values. And if they do, then I think we kind of say that's checkbox one.
Yep.
Then we start to look at we start to use words like grit, which is a great book, by the way. If anyone's looking for a book to pick up, we'll kind of unpack this topic a little bit more.
Yep.
We also use words like moxie.
Mm-hmm.
We also talk about words like accountability, resourcefulness, communication, because those are all really important to kind of when you also talk about passion. Those words also tend to tie into it. And then I think we have an interview process or a meeting process with candidates that just start to get to know each other a little bit more and find out where the priorities are. I often think that life is kind of like a four-top stovetop.
Yep.
And you can have two on the front on high and the two on the back on simmer. And whatever your priorities are in life, whether it's your career or religion or family or working out, there's the whole list, and they tend to fall in, in the large categories, about 6 or 7 buckets. What are your priorities in life? It's really, really hard to
and they change over the years. They change from time to time.
Absolutely. That's a great call out. And if you have the front two on high, if you're not willing to have Project 44 on high, then it's probably not the right fit. But we also take a lot of pride in that too. It's that you can accelerate your career and knowledge here. And so for people, to your point, that are at that's where they are in their life,
Yep.
we tend to be a great fit for them. But if their goal in 2019 is to run 3 Ironmen and be super active in other things that are equally as important in life, there's probably could be some conflict there.
And so the question then becomes, when you've hired someone and their burners shift, their burners change, whether it's a conscious decision, it just happens, or life gets in the way, sick parent, sick spouse, whatever it may be. How do you have that discussion? How long do you give it before you say, you know what, this was the right place for you at the right time, and you did great, but it's not anymore?
I think hopefully we have a culture where both sides kind of can quickly get to that answer, at least have a knowledge that, hey, it may or may not be the right fit anymore. And I'll kind of back up and I'll reference kind of one of our values, which is real talk, which is just speaking plainly and directly and kind of getting off. It doesn't mean you have to be a jerk or you have to be brash. Just about, being transparent and talking. So between the one-on-ones that happen, weekly or bi-weekly, there should be some type of communication that's happened. Now, to your point, on the edge cases, you do run into those really unfortunate situations, like a family member being sick or something like that's a really unfortunate situation. So I think we'd kind of carve that out.
Yep.
But if it's hey, I came to Project 44. I gave it 3 years. I gave it heck. It was an awesome experience, and I'm ready to start doing other things. Let's go back to that Ironman. Compete in that aggressively. Then we would just talk about it, and we would talk about what a transition would look like, and we would talk about where it is. I don't think I have this real challenge, and there's a story that someone that I really like shared with me a few years ago. It's personal.
Yep.
If the expectations aren't right on our side or the team member side, then it's not fair to either party, and it's also not fair to the other team members.
Yes. Because you're burdening with those people with a bit of an anchor, a bit of a rock tied to their ankle.
Yeah. There's a lot of effort and sacrifice that everyone has to put in and to accomplish the goals. And to your point, it's life is not fair, but the activities and motivations and efforts should be fair around the table.
Got it. Let's shift gears to building a great leadership team. I've done a lot of research on Project 44, and I know that's something you take a lot of pride in. You've built an amazing senior team. Tell us a little about the cadence that you've gotten into with this team, because now it's been 5 years. You're at 200 people, and there must be people in the team that you probably don't even know anymore. Like, you see them in the hall, and you're like, "Hey, how you doing?" So that, which is an awkward time, right, in the growth of a company, for a founder to no longer know everyone's name. How have you structured the cadence with the senior team so that you've got your finger on the pulse, you know what's going on, but you still give them plenty of room to do their jobs, et cetera?
Yes, I think when you're in that kind of startup stage, companies tend to be very much like a hero type environment, and that's a positive and it's a negative, but it's also something that as a founder you want to keep in the DNA of people really caring, because oftentimes what comes with that hero is passion. So for us, we thought about it going from hero to mechanical, or hero to scale. Would be a way to say it.
Yep.
And to your point, once you get above that 50, 75 team members, it's really tough for a founder to be able to wrap his or her arms around everyone and be able to have that kind of personal relationship and get that buy-in. So I think where we were successful at, it was really about, what is our vision? What is our mission? What are our values? And how do we build a team that can keep the same passion, that DNA, regardless of the size that we are?
Yep.
But then how can we, from whether you look at it from tops up or bottoms down, there's alignment as to what direction we're going. And so we've done that. And then what we also do is we have 5 strategic objectives that we're really transparent with everyone on the team. That rolls into about 20 or 25 KPIs depending on the quarter.
Yep.
Sometimes they may be more dramatic shifts than others. And then that's all kind of underpinned by the desk level KPIs that roll up to the 20-ish KPIs, and then to the 5 strategic objectives. All underpinned by one-on-ones that are weekly or bi-weekly.
So there's a real drumbeat that you've put in place through the company: daily, hourly, daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, et cetera.
Yes, that's correct.
What's the one you can't live without? The one that you rely on the most to have a real finger on the pulse, without micromanaging, without babysitting.
Sure.
That when you sleep at night, your head hits the pillow, you're like, things are on track. Is it that weekly executive staff meeting? Is it the weekly hot sheet? Is it your quarterly board meeting?
I would say it's probably the one-on-one time. I'm not sure that's probably be different answers for different CEOs, but for me, for someone that really I really enjoy looking across the table and kind of at my colleagues. I think it was as team members. I think of it as it's competitive, and just being able to have that conversation, hear what's on their mind.
Yep.
I think we cover a lot more ground there. If you said get rid of your 5 strategic objectives, like that seems like it'd be really difficult. But if you say get rid of the one-on-ones, I just don't even know if it'd be worth it. I just care too much about the people I'm working with.
That's almost fun for you, not just the metrics. Got it. So look, the 80-90% of the time that the senior team is on the same page and in alignment, life is good. It's easy. You can go on vacation. No one's even going to know that you're not there. The 10% of the time that the senior team is not in agreement, it could be on a strategy. It could be on a hiring decision. It could be on your style, whatever it may be, that there's a rub that needs to be resolved. What have you learned over these 5 years about how to do that? How do you make that actionable for the listeners so they understand when there's an issue at the top team, you can't just look the other way. You got to get it resolved one way or the other. And I understand you talked about plain talk or real talk. That's great too. But okay, they still don't agree. Obviously, sometimes you just make the decision. That's what you're paid to do as CEO, but that's not always, I'm assuming, what you do. So how do you think through those issues?
I think we're fortunate it's not as high a percentage as you mentioned, and for us, and I think it's because we have real talk on an hourly basis. So we don't get that much of a misalignment.
Plus, it's a very data-driven business, I assume, right?
That's right. Another value of ours is collaboration. So when you kind of combine real talk and collaboration, you get this interesting dynamic where there may be a misalignment, but there tends to be a good amount of respect. And so what I typically would do is I don't hire really smart, capable people so that I can tell them what to do.
Right.
I hire them so I can empower them to make the best decisions.
But not even all smart people see things the same way. They see the data different ways, or they have different investment horizons or different risk tolerances. So in those situations, how do you get them in alignment?
I'm not sure if it's right or wrong, but we would get in a room and we would talk about it openly. And if we weren't able to get alignment on a topic, and it was at that level, like a time horizon or something there, I would ultimately make the decision to your point. But that's so far and few between here. Now, in no way are we a perfect company. We got a lot of things we can do better as a management team, and certainly me as a CEO. But that isn't a huge challenge for us. We like to, once we get that alignment. For me, it's really about how do you operationalize it.
Yeah.
Talk about it, and then how do you get the full wood of the arrow behind the tip of that arrow, or the wood behind the tip of the spear. And I think that's almost more important to make sure is once that decision is made, is how do you get everyone working towards it? Because I think where you would go with that is I suspect what thread you start to pull on. If you don't have that, you start to get passive aggressiveness. That's what I've learned in other businesses.
Sure, hidden
So
agendas and different
that's right.
functionals that are not functions that are not in alignment. It doesn't take long to screw things up.
That's right. Exactly. So I think we just practice real talk and collaboration. Try to get to it and let people express where they are. And we tend to leverage the expert in that area, and come to the best decision. I'll rally behind it.
Real talk is that the phrase you're using? Real talk.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes.
So real talk takes a lot of vulnerability to enter the danger, risk offending or pissing people off. And I don't mean that you're rude, but you're critiquing their ideas. You're not criticizing the person, but their ideas. And it takes a lot of vulnerability to admit when you're wrong, that you don't have all the answers. And I don't mean you, I mean anyone on your senior team. How do you practice real talk? How do you get people to open up, to set their own agenda aside, to admit when they're wrong? How do you, or do you have to hire people that are just innately good at that?
I think we probably definitely try to hire people that are open to that. I think real talk starts just in the interview process, and I definitely have seen. So I interviewed someone today, and when we got to real talk, it was clear to me by the end of the meeting that that wasn't something that they would be comfortable with.
Yeah.
And so if you start at that screening process, and I get that, because to your point, it does make you vulnerable. It does make you have to admit when you're wrong, and these are all good things I think that successful people tend to have in common. But it's not for everyone.
Yeah. I give you a lot of credit because you have pulled it off, or you're pulling it off, right? With 200 people, which is easier said than done. You've raised a lot of money from some great investors to build a wonderful company, and I give you a lot of credit. How can people learn more about Project 44 or get in touch with you, Jett?
I think the best spot is, and thanks for the opportunity, is just go to our website and click on careers, and reach out to us, or just dial into the 800 number on the website. And we're happy to chat. We have tons of open positions all across the globe. So we're really fortunate. Thank you for the support.
And if you're shipping anything and you want visibility within inches and minutes, you got to check out Project 44, right?
That's right. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks for making time, Jett.
All right. Take care. Thanks, Jeff.